أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, the praise belongs to God, the Lord of all systems of knowledge, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, the sole judge on the day of judgment. We worship you only and we turn to you begging assistance. Guide us on the straight way, the way of those on whom you restored blessing, not those who go astray, not those who incur your wrath, nor those who go astray. Amen.
I mean, always, Imam Omar, thank you so much. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, we're going to get started right away. I just want you to know that after our presentation, which is about 30 minutes, we will entertain questions. This is a very important subject because many of us are in debt and many of us have bad credit. And so our brother Ahmed Porter, who specializes in this field, has agreed to come on Study al-Islam and talk to us about making our credit great again. So let's welcome our guest, our brother, our community member here in Washington, D.C., Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for coming on. This is a very important subject matter. And so, and we don't have a lot of reliable voices to kind of give us any guidance on how do we improve our credit and get out of these high interest rate that we're paying. So please go ahead with your presentation.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to thank the opportunity for the sister allowing me to be able to speak in front of, I call my community. And as I was listening, I just see people from all facets of the states and from Carolina, Detroit, you name it, the community has it in there. And you always hear about 1 billion Muslims, and it shows that, you know, there is Islam in every corner of the world. Today, I'm talking about a subject that I'm very passionate about. I just excited, and you can see it in my face. It's about credit. And I've been in this space for probably about 6 years. And this space has really changed not only me, myself, but it has changed my family. It changed the people that are around me by being able to implement the credit. One thing that everyone has here, if they're over 18, is a credit profile. And what I want to do is try to show the people today how that credit profile can be helpful for you in being able to save you money, to be able to maneuver your life into a new level, to be able to help your business grow. So a little backdrop about me. Of course, I grew up in this community, I guess from a shorty or a peewee. I probably ran around Masjid Muhammad at 2 years old. I can, I'm guessing, I'm assuming. But, that's where my roots came at. But this field I accidentally had got into, many people know me in DC. I had a construction business, and that construction business is still in existence for about maybe 20 years. That construction business I did, one of the problems I was running into when people wanted to get the renovations, they could not get it. And there were certain things that were stopping them. And then I found out what was stopping them. For example, I had a sister that I was doing a kitchen and a bathroom for, and she wanted some things in her house. And she called me back and she said, I really wanted you to do it, brother, but I couldn't do it. She said, on my credit, the institution said I was 1 point short from getting this renovation done. And at that point, it was like an aha moment that hit me. I'm just like, what's 1 point? Like, what do I need to do to get this sister this 1 point that stopped me from getting this $75,000 to be able to do this renovation? So long story short, what I did was ask her to send me her report. When I looked at her report, I found out there was some inaccuracies on that report. on that report, it had some misspellings. It had an account that wasn't hers. So it had things that did not belong. So I went through the credit dispute process, and through that process, I was able to get those things out, and I ended up getting that client. What she ended up doing was spreading my name to a lot of other people, and they would call me and say, "Hey, I heard you got the sister stuff off. Can you do my stuff also?" So it started from maybe one person, then it started becoming to another person, then it started becoming in different areas. So then I wanted to start when the pandemic started to hit. I wanted to start to educate myself a lot more, and I started taking more master classes. I started going to Credit Con. I started surrounding myself with like-minded people so I could learn from them. And I also started investing into my education, software, things of that nature, so I could be able to not only help me, but help people around me. At that point, in Atlanta, I started networking with a lot of people. I started being a mastermind on course that we were doing. And surprisingly, the credit space took off more for me in Atlanta than it did in DC. So it seemed like that community had embraced me a lot faster. After Atlanta had kind of took off, then Philly had kind of recognized more, and then crazy enough, it came back to DC. So then I started being getting calls from different people in that space. So that's the backdrop on how I got into it. One of the things I wanted to go through and was talk about is how to read a report. What I really want to do is make sure that I'm bringing some value to our community, because our community itself, it's a lot of money that's going outside of our community. If you have bad credit, you're doing a disservice to your kids, you're doing a disservice to your community, and you're doing a disservice to yourself. The reason why I say this is because when you get these loans, say, for example, a car note, you can have two people who are having a car. One person could be paying $280 and another person could be paying $380. They can have the exact same vehicle. So when they're doing that vehicle, that money is going to $1 billion industry. A lot of times these banking institutions, they make money off you having bad credit. They don't make money off you having good credit. So when you pay, you're not paying those exorbitant fees. And that's being Muslim. We shouldn't pay that. The Quran talks about us not paying exorbitant fees, not paying high interest, because at that point we become that of a debtor to the people who has these notes. So one of the things that I tell everybody is to know what your report is. You should have your report handy on you, and you should be able to have access to it at least every 30 days. The three bureaus that you're going to look at is Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Those are the three major ones that report on your report. So as for me, an example, when my very first routine when I get up is to make my salat. The second routine that I do is check my bank account. The third thing I do is check my credit, in those order, because it's very important to me, because all those three things that I said has a very important part of my everyday life that I'm doing. So those are the things that everybody should be doing. It's a lot of people out there who couldn't tell you what their credit report is. It's a lot of people who don't even know what their Social Security report is. And the reason why I tell everyone to know what it is, because you don't know when people are putting things that are not right or doing fraud on your account. And so it's easier for you to spot it when you have these monitoring sites. The one I use is Smart Credit. I've been using that for a couple of years. I tell all my clients to use it. And the reason I say you can log into it, it also will notify you on your account when somebody goes and use it. Many of you will have AAA. If you had AAA, they do a credit monitoring for free. So you just have to tell them to do Experian. So you can look at your Experian through AAA, and that's something that you get. Credit Karma is another one. If you have a Navy Federal card or account, Navy Federal has it where you have free accounts. So some of the banking institutions have it also. If you have that of a Discover card, Discover also gives you where you can get a free credit report also. So now I'm going to try to go into actually reading a credit report so you can know what's going on with actual credit report. When you get your credit report, you always want to look at all three bureaus that I had named. So the main thing you want to do is look at the name. The name is very important on your credit profile. That says who you are. So if you look at the name on it, you want it to name the person who's on that. I'm going to pick on Imam Yusuf Salim today. He always picks on me and when we were in class, and use him as an example. So we say, for example, when you pull your credit report, it says Imam, it says Yusuf Salim on the report. So he may have, in our community, we changed names a lot. So it's not uncommon for people to have a secondary name or have changed it. But what happens is on that credit profile, those two different names may show differently up there. I'm not sure if you ever pulled up your credit profile and you can see there's more than one name up there. It may have a DBA or a secondary name on that profile. What you want to do is dispute those secondary names. The reason you want to only see one name up there. The one name is because if you're going to get funding from a banking lending institution, you want to see it's just one name up there. If you see multiple names, there's a problem with having multiple names on the credit profile. So,
Ahmad,
yes,
I
ma'am.
need you to slow up just a little bit.
Not a problem at all.
Slow up a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Because what
So,
you're saying is very important. And,
no,
and so I need Marsha to try to put some of these things in the text.
sure.
So go ahead. Mhm.
So as we said, the main thing is trying to have one name on your credit report. That's kind of crucial. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because our community, we do change names a lot. You know, we could be known as Yusuf Salim at on the job and it will show, but we could be Eric Thomas, our original name, but on that credit profile, they may show a lot of things as Eric Thomas. That's not you. On your government ID, it says who you are. On your accounts, it's supposed to reflect who you are. So sometime when you get rid of that bad name, what it does is remove that bad debt also. So that's why you want to have that. When a lending institution, when you go and apply for credit, say for Bank of America, Navy Federal, TransUnion, when you apply, they don't want to see maybe 4 or 5 different names. You always tell people that to put yourself in the name of a bank, look at it through the lens of a bank when you're doing it. If I'm about to give somebody money, do I want to give somebody who has one name money, or do I want to give somebody who has 5 different names money? So, you know, you can use that to yourself and say that one name is that of the best. So we went through the name process. That's the first thing that you want to look on your credit report and see. Another thing is the birthday. I look at different reports and the birthday is different. You may look and it'll say 1958. One bureau may say 1952. One may have a different date. Those are inaccuracies that you want to make sure that they're not there. So then inaccuracies can end up causing you a problem when you go to get funding. Those inaccuracies can throw your stuff out when you're applying for things because they don't know, because the information on the bureaus that they're seeing is not accurate going across the board. So that's something that you want to make sure that you are taking care of too in there. Other thing is the address. I see this many a times on a report. You'll pull somebody report and they may have 5 or 6 different addresses. For example, you may be on Otis Street, but your address is W Street and it has addresses for 5 and 6 years. You want to remove those addresses. So when you want to have it, you want to have that one address that's on your credit report. When you're looking at that, and the same thing for a lender, you got to think, you got to put your eyes in the sight of a lender. If I'm lending out money, am I going to give this money to somebody who got 5 or 6 different addresses, or do I want to give this money to someone who has one address? So one of the ways that we dispute this when we're doing the dispute process is we take a copy of the ID, a copy of the Social Security card, and a copy of the social, and we send that into all 3 bureaus certified. And we send it to them. You say, I do not recognize these names. This is my government issue name right here. This is my address right here. This is my birthday right here. And this is proof and documentation on saying that. And you send that. And can you please remove all those items from my report? Once we send that in, a lot of times the score will go up because it's a lot of negative information that is on the report. A lot of times, and sometimes that you were getting not approved for your credit loans or places that you were going, you're now going to start getting approved more because they know who you are. So on the file, it's showing you almost have 2 different identities. It's almost like you're a third person, but when you clear those things up, it recognizes you as being one person. Okay, one of the things we also talked about, we're going to get into what's on that account. There are different things that are on the account. One of the main ones that we look at are credit cards. The credit card, when you look at it, it should have a couple of things. One of it should have the name of the lending institution who is on that credit report. So when you apply for your credit, it should say Navy Federal, it should pay Chase, it should pay Tourist, it should say Discovery on that report. It should also have that date when you establish this credit report up there. So when you're looking at your report, sometime when we dispute it, if that date's not up there, it's inaccurate information. So you're going to see the date. Another thing that you're going to want to see is the balance. So when you have that on that report, that balance is something that's supposed to be shown, and it's supposed to be shown all the way across the board when you're doing it on your credit report. So those are the things that you're going to see on a credit report also. Another thing that you may notice, there's another section it has up there is for public records. Public records, it has up there, such if you may have got a judgment, bankruptcy, Chapter 7, those will be up there on public records. Some things that you're going to see on public records are also that I've seen is going to be child support. If you owe child support, those things that are going to be shown on that of as a judgment too. If you owed money in a court proceeding, those will be reported on your credit report, and it will be on judgment. The reason why this is on your credit report, these are lenders, these are underwriters that are looking at that, and they're trying to deem if you're credit worthy to be able to give you money. So the thing is with the score, if your score is in a higher level, the more money that you're going to be able to get according to the people who are giving out the funds and the money. So if you have a higher score, the likelihood on you are foreclosing or not paying the debt is less. If you have a lower score, that means the likelihood on you not paying that debt is a lot higher. So that's normally how that goes. So they go through and they do the algorithms on what's being able to do, and they look at that score and say, hey, Yusuf Salim, his score is that of 800, and based off this, we're going to give him this amount of money. Hey, Yusuf Salim missed a couple payments and his score is at 680. We're not going to be able to give him 20, but we may give him 12. The interest rate now may change because now that the report that he has on the interest rate on his credit worthiness, we're going to give him money, but we might not give him the same amount, but we might give him a higher interest rate on what he's getting from that. So another thing that's up there is going to be installment loans. One of the installment loans that you're going to look at, the most common one is really the most common that you're always going to see is going to be that of a mortgage. It's going to show up there on your report. It's going to show who your mortgage is with. So for example, whatever mortgage company you're with, you're going to see that on your report. If you're with Nation Star, for example, Nation Star is going to show when you had that mortgage, and it's going to show the amount. One of the things that fluctuate a little bit is when they sell your mortgage. Many people have got that in the mail, and it'll say, you're no longer with Nation Star, you're with a new mortgage company now. So when you're with that new mortgage company, what happens a lot of time, that debt on your payment changes. So a lot of times we're able to dispute a lot of stuff on the mortgage because the original lender does not really have that debt anymore. Another thing that you're going to see on that report, which is common for that loan, is going to be cars. Your car is going to show up on the report, and usually it's going to show up on who you have the financing with. So you could have bought a Mercedes. 9 times 10, it might not show off Mercedes if you went to a credit union and got it. My vehicle, I went to the credit union and got, so on my report, it shows from the credit union. The same way, it's going to list the original person who has the debt. It's going to show the amount of that debt that's going to be on the report. It's going to show the terms on that report also that you're going to see up there. So those are the ones that you're going to look at. So you're going to have a revolving debt that's usually going to show that's on that report, and you're going to have installments. So those are the 2 most common things that you're going to see on that credit report. So when you see those things, you're going to know what's on that credit report. So I went through the major things that you would see on your credit report, and you know how to read that on your credit report. So wanted to ask a question, and I guess I could put a 1 in the chat if they can. How many people have actually signed for someone to be able to get something in their name? So if you ever had someone that you had to sign for a car, a house, or a credit card and use it, my suggestion is don't do that. So, you know, put it in a 1. I want to ask this, how did it end up going for you? The reason why I say don't do that, because a lot of times you're the person who's guaranteeing that. I hear a lot of people that come to me, and I want to say probably about 40% of the people that I do the credit repair for is from people who have co-signed for people. You get it all the time, and they come with the story, and it's legitimate at that time. And they play on your sensitivity and like, hey, mom, hey, dad, I need you to co-sign for me this car. I need to get to school. And you say no, you know, that's not a good idea. And they come back, what if I break down? What if I need this? Or I need a credit card. What if the emergency happens? And what happens is that you take your good credit and you extend it to another person. When you extend it to another person, what ends up happening that you are responsible. You're responsible for that debt. And a lot of times you're giving these access to money to people who have no inclination on how to pay bills. Their money management is not the best. When they're doing it, it indirectly affects you. So not only is your credit, you know, went down, the person that you're dealing with credit is also messed up. So one of the things I always say, try not to co-sign for somebody. My thing is try to build a credit report up. At a young age, you can start building people's credit. My son, you know, he's on my credit cards. I have an LLC to set up for him. So certain things that you can do as a parent to kind of help them out. One of the things that we also do when we send our kids off to school, we send them and telling them about, you know, be aware of these people, be aware of dangerous situations. But one of the things that we don't send them is having a financial literacy on how to balance their credit cards, a financial literacy on how to be able to pay their things on time, a financial literacy on how to look at their credit report, because these things are very crucial and they're going to use these for the rest of their life. It's going to determine what kind of car they have, what type of place they're going to stay in, and sometimes the type of job that they're going to have. So one of the things I want to go through now is the dispute process. And I'm just going to touch a little small smidget on how we remove certain things off of a credit report. And I'm probably going to be about maybe 10 or 12 more minutes. But when you go through a report, what we remove is inaccuracy things that are on a report. Now, remember, on a report, it says that things that are on a report has to be verified. That's very important. If it cannot, it's not verifiable, they have to remove it. If it's not accurate, they have to remove it. So those are the main things that we go through, is trying to be able to see if it's verifiable or it is accurate. If it's not accurate by law, those are the things that they're supposed to remove. They have to respond back to us in a certain amount of time. So when we send correspondence off to the 3 bureaus, it's usually was 30 days that they were to respond back to us. After COVID, it kind of turned like to 35, almost 40 to be realistic with you. So it's just been taking a couple of days longer, and they haven't changed it back. But when you send those disputes off, they by law are supposed to respond back to you in a certain amount of time. One of the things that we see on a lot is medical bills, and process on how we deal with medical bills is a little bit different, or it's following the procedures, but one way that's how we get them off. So a medical bill, we're going to use a hypothetical situation, and I'm using Imam Yusuf Salim as my go-to person to talk about. So we're saying Imam Yusuf Salim has a credit report, and on this credit report, he went through some medical challenges. On that medical challenges on his report, we look and we just creating this hypothetically. This is not actually a real situation. I'm just using them for demonstration purposes. So on his credit report, it shows that he has Duke Medical. And on the next report, it shows that he has Duke Medical cancer. I'm not saying that he has cancer or anything. It's just for the sake of showing how to dispute a process in there and why you dispute it and can dispute it. So on the report, Imam Yusuf Salim goes and applies for this prestigious teaching job. And at this prestigious teaching job, they want to see a copy of his credit report to know where he is at, to show that he doesn't owe a lot of money, to see that he's a good candidate, to get a snapshot of his financial. In the process of giving a credit report, a person looks on the credit profile and they look and they see like, oh, I see that he has Duke Medical cancer thing that he owes him $10,000. I see he has another operation he did that. So what can actually happen at that point, the person who is viewing his report can actually discriminate against him because they say, oh, he might not be at work, he might be sick. This is something that our insurance may have to put on our caseload, that we don't want to take that chance with him. So they might not tell him, but they could discriminate on him. So when they come to me and they bring that report and I start seeing the medical stuff up there, immediately I go into law. And what I say is the HIPAA law. The HIPAA law is you cannot give your medical information to that of a third party. When they gave this to the credit bureaus, that is a third party. So what I end up doing is I write a letter and say, hey, this is Yusuf Salim, and I noticed on my credit report that you had Duke Medical up here, and it shouldn't be on my report because it's violation of my HIPAA law. And if you do not remove this, you're in violation of the law, and I need this to be removed. What happens, they look at that, they look at the compliance that I sent, I do the citing for that particular thing, and that is removed. That's just one aspect on how we do it. I'll go through maybe one more tactic. Everybody, I think, would have maybe charge-offs. We'll go back on a charge-off. The charge-off, for example, is this is what takes place. When you have an account, the first thing you get is a 30 days. They call you, every account must be paid within 30 days of you receiving that debt. So that's by the law. So after 30 days, what happens? Usually it's a 30-day late. The second time they send you is that of a 60-day late. And the third time they send it to you is a 90-day late. Each time that you do that, your credit drops on them sending that to you. And at a certain point, the banking institution does not keep that debt. That debt is transferred to a secondary bureau, because the bank in the procedure of trying to collect money, they're not going to keep hounding you and knocking on your door. Their job is to lend money and to be able to get the collection from the money is what they normally do. So that's the process that they do. Once that account is sold to that of a third party, they put it on your credit profile. When we look at that credit profile, one of the first things that we do and we say is like, hey, notice that you have, I'll give you an example, Mid-Atlantic is one of the main ones they do. And I see a lot of car payments that may be on that particular one. We'll say and read it and say the third party now has your collection. It's not with Toyota Financial. It's not with Mercedes anymore. It's with a third party. We'll say, Brother Salim did not give you permission to talk to a third party. His contract was originally with Navy Federal. His contract was really with AMG or whatever financial institution that it is. And we need you to remove that because you're not authorized to speak on his behalf. You are a third party and his original contract is with that. We will ask for a validation of that letter. A validation of that letter is when we send the letter out and we ask, are you validated to take this debt? Is this debt, basically, are you able to collect from this institution? Are you licensed in this place? Is what we have. So we went through just a couple of procedures that we would normally do for credit. One of the other things that I wanted to go in just briefly for maybe a couple of 5 more minutes before I conclude is this credit itself. I've seen change a lot of families, and it also changed our family. I was out of town and on vacation, and the property that we had, water was coming through the roof. And my mom had called me. She's like, "Hey, Ahmad, it's water coming through the roof." And I was literally probably 600 miles. I think I was in New Orleans, but I was able to pick the phone up, call a contractor, pay for it off my credit card. So those are things that you think about when an emergency happens, that you could use this credit card to be. We're doing now is people in DC, and the price of real estate is getting extra expensive. Right now, I can't afford to stay in the same house that I'm in right now because the value just shot up so much. So what we're doing now is showing people how to do auxiliary units. Auxiliary unit is a unit inside of where you stay at, and what they're doing, and we're showing people how to use your credit. For example, it can be 2 auxiliary units. The main ones we've been doing is that of a basement. The basement, what we're doing now is showing people how to convert their basement into a livable space to be able to rent it out on Airbnb, to be able to get a positive income to offset the high inflation, to be able to do it as a retirement, to be able to use those means now. That Airbnb unit or that rental unit is taking care of the debt of the credit card. Another thing we're showing people is how to use the garage. Most people have a garage, they have junk in there. It's not anybody that I usually go to. When I look at it, just have boxes and a lot of junk in there. Half the time the car is being parked on the outside. So what we've been showing people do is how to take that garage and convert it into an in-law suite to be able to put a kitchen and a bathroom in there. So now that you have positive money that is coming in for that space. So I ask people also to be able to apply for money when you don't need it. Right now, if you don't need money, try to apply for it. And then we want to stay in compliance with our religion because we don't want to pay exorbitant interest. So I always tell the people, try to get a 0% APR card. If you can't, I'll get the lowest card as possible. So I hope I said some things that are beneficial, and I hope I brought light to some things that I am passionate about. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk in front of my community.
So first of all, thank you very much. And we have all, almost everybody I know has been a victim of overspending, bad credit, mainly because especially our young people, these companies send our young people credit cards without their parents aware of it, and they give them this ability to use that credit card, and they don't have any ability to pay it back. So there are some questions, but the first thing I need you to do, Ahmed, and the information was really, really good. I don't think I've looked at my credit report in maybe 20 years. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a credit report when I hang up to find out, although, I'm gonna make sure that my children know about pulling up their credit report. The first thing I want you to do is share with how can the community reach out to you, those who need your service. I know that there's a fee associated with it. I'm not asking you to share fees right now, but how can the community reach out to you so that they can get you to help them to clean up their credit report? That's the first thing. If you could put that in the chat, or if you can just verbally say it, then Marsha can put it in the chat. But we want people to be able to reach you, Ahmed.
Sure. The easiest way, just for my Islamic community, I was wanting them to have personal, direct connect. Everybody else I send to a website, and you got to go through all this. But this is my family, that I'm looking at. I'm looking at people I've known since 2. They know my parents. I know their kids. I've been in this community. I don't remember, so that lets me know that I grew up and I was born in this community. So they have my direct cell phone number when they call me. And everybody else, I usually send them through the office. They go through a secretary. But when it's coming from our community, those are the ones that I want to help first, because I know the importance of it. I know the importance of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a community. And one thing that I said as a disservice is we're giving a lot of our money in our community out to these lending institutions when it should be going in our community. I'll give you an example. If we have 1,000 members in our community and 500 of them have bad credit, they're paying more on a premium for a car. They're paying more for a premium on their credit card. So you think about this, thousands of dollars that's not going into our masjids. That's thousands of dollars that are not going into our school. That's thousands of dollars that are not going into our families just by not being able to have good credit. So I'll put my number in there, and I can say in the chat so that she can have it.
So we do want to open it up for questions, and
no problem.
We want to open it up for questions. We want to keep the answers very short so we can get as many questions in as possible. I see Dr. Basima has asked, Marsha, Dr. Basima had a question. Can you see it?
So, sure, I can see it. And so her question is, for clarity, can you expound upon the time frame items will remain on one's credit? So how long will those items be on one's credit? I guess particularly the negative ones. How long do they stay there?
According to the law, there's 2 things. Your charge off and your collections, they usually remain up there for a 7-year time period. That's the normal time. After 7 years, they're removed. A bankruptcy is more. A bankruptcy is usually about 10 years. That's for chapter 7 or 13. So those are things that will be longer. And I think a judgment can remain longer than that. So the average person on their profile that we're looking at, if you don't get this done, that means you're in a state of not having good credit or you're paying more for 7 years. That's a long time.
I was also told that if you have credit cards that you're no longer using, you should close them and take them off of your credit rating. Is because that also places you at a higher risk or lowers your credit rating? Is that so?
No, total opposite. If you have a credit card and it's in good standing, do not close that credit card out. What it does is part of your score is on the history of your score. So if you look at it, your payment history is what makes up your score. If you close that card off, what you're doing is killing your history. So when people look at it, it's showing your payment history. My thing is to keep the balance low on that card. And every now and then use it, because if that card is not being used, sometimes the bank will close that card out. You ever had a card and for no reason you get a letter in the mail and say, hey, this is Chase, we're canceling your card, and you had $5,000 on that card. So what I tell people, just go buy some gas on it. It don't have to be anything expensive, and pay it back next month, because it shows activity on that card. What the bank normally does is they do a snapshot on their cards and they see what card is inactive. If it's inactive, you're more of a risk, because a person can use fraudulent manners and use that card, and 9 times out of 10, you're not going to know it because you're not looking at that card all the time.
Marsha, we have other questions. I see that.
Yes, we do. And so let me just make sure I'm not skipping any. Okay. So this next one is a little compounded, so I'm gonna give it to you in pieces, right?
No
So
problem.
the first one is, can you address debt to income ratio? And so if you want to answer that, I'll let you answer that. And then there's a question here connected to student loans as well.
Okay, the debt to income ratio, this is what happens when you get a card. The more you use on that card, the more less credit worthy you are. You want to keep your balance down low, that's what they're talking about. So for example, if you have a card and it has $1,000 on it, the most you want to use on that card is $300. The more you use on that card, the more your score is going to drop some, because then you're maxing out that card. The lower that debt to income ratio, the better you are when you apply for money. The better you're looking more sexier to the banks, and they say, hey, you don't need money. And it's funny, the banks want to give you more money when you don't need it.
Okay. And then the next question is, how are student loans that are shown on your credit report evaluated?
Student loans, that's a good question. Whoever asked that question, I see a lot of people with student loans on there, and student loans are positive if they're showing that they're going to be paid, because you got to think about the history time that you had those student loans. So a lot of people, they'll go back and like, oh, can you remove my student loans? Yeah, it can be removed off your credit profile. But the problem is, if it's a positive account, you don't want to remove anything that's positive on your report, because it shows it's positive. It shows that you went to school. It shows that you have been paying this and it's paid on as agreed on. And sometimes it helps your score. So you don't want to remove those student loans if they're showing that a positive. If they're negative, then you go after the negative item and try to address them. But if they're positive, my recommendation is to leave them up there.
Okay. And earlier you did address what to do if we have cards on our report or accounts on our report that are open but don't have a balance. But what if the account is closed and it's still on the report? What do we do about those?
You have to look and see how it's reading. Sometimes it can be closed and say closed as agreed. Sometimes you could have had closed the account itself and it's not negative. But the thing is, when you close an account, you're losing the history. So it's not bad, but it's not giving you any points. It's not allowing you to be able to maximize your score, is when they have that closed account. Now, if it's closed by the lending institution and doesn't show a balance, that still does not look at you as being bad. What you want to make sure is that it's not in a negative state when you read it. You don't want to be in collection. You don't want to be in the judgment. You don't want it to have late payments. So those are the things that you are looking for on that closed account.
So what is a good credit score? Let me ask you this: is a good credit score? Does your age have anything to do with for example, I'm a senior, I have an excellent credit score, but I can't get any money because of the fact that I don't have a good paying job anymore. I'm in retirement. So having a good credit score for me, what is the benefit? And then versus a young person, what is a good credit score, first of all? What is it? Where's the range of a good credit score?
Okay, let me rephrase that. It's really, people look at a number as having a good credit score. It's what's on your report. So a lot of people, like, I have 700, I have 800. I've seen people with 780 and can't get anything because there's nothing on the report. You don't have accounts. So what we do sometimes is get people funding to be able to help them get their business. You have to have 10 positive accounts that are on your profile. When you have that many accounts, bank are looking at you, you're dealing with all these different people. If you're paying all 10 of them on time, 9 times out of 10, you're going to pay me on time. As being a senior,
Wow.
you have to look at it, it's life or death, I would say, for a senior, because you got to think a lot of problems come at your feet as being a senior and trying to manage that family. So you got to think, if somebody dies, I'm just using as a hypothetical in there, somebody in your family passes away, you're going to be the first one to get that call. But a lot of times the people don't have the insurance. A lot of times people can't take care of those things. And I hate to see a GoFundMe page. A GoFundMe page you don't have to do, because you can go to the place that has the janaza or the funeral and swipe your credit card and be able to take care of this. So why are we putting our community in those positions that we have to go and, beg the community and say, oh, we need this and we need that? And just one person in the community could just swipe the card. And if the person didn't pay you back, I could have paid on this card in time, but I'm able to put my family inside the ground. And one thing I want to make sure, people need to change their spending habit. If you got a debit card, get rid of it. Do not use a debit card. The reason I say a debit card, people have access to your account. So when you go into these gas stations and some of these vendors, they have card readers on them. I know y'all seen them on the news a lot. So if they have a card reader on it, they're able to take your information and basically clone your card, and we can go on a spending spree. Sometimes you even see them at McDonald's and some of the places everybody uses their card. But if you have a debit card, you don't have the protection as you do of a credit card. So what happens on that skimmer, when you use that debit card, I got access to your account. So say, example, by you being a senior, you may have all your money inside that account. You may have your payments and everything. I'm able to pull that out without you knowing, by the way that you're using that debit card. If you use a credit card, it doesn't bother you. All you have to do is pick the phone up and say, hey, somebody compromised my credit card. They're going to do it immediately. With a debit card, it's not like that. So you can start getting bad credit just on waiting for them to do the investigation on who took the money out of your account. And who knows, you might have had a doctor's appointment. You may have had a trip you had to go through. So do not use your debit card if you can, by all means.
That's interesting because that's all I use is a debit card. And it's interesting because I just found out from that Amazon that somebody has attached themselves to my account and are ordering from Amazon on my account. By the mercy of Allah, they are deleting it because it is verifiable that it wasn't delivered to me. But had I not seen that by accident, actually, by accident, I wouldn't have known that that someone was attaching themselves to and ordering from Amazon. So we really have to be that about the debit card. This is the first time I'm hearing about that. So I definitely will stop using my debit card. I will definitely stop using my debit. And we use our debit card at the supermarkets all the time. All the time. So and also you brought up about the number of accounts and paying them on time makes you a better candidate for loans. But I was again I heard just the opposite, that having a lot of accounts make you also look like you have a lot of debt. But I guess the key is just to be paying them on time. So address that.
Of course, you don't want to have a lot of debt. We don't want exorbitant. We don't want 100 accounts, but 10 is a good number to have. and you want to have mixed use, because what you're doing is showing a pattern of payment. If you keep doing the same thing with everybody, if you got 7 people you're paying over here, 2 cars over here, this over here, you're looking like you can manage money. The main thing is managing money. A lot of my seniors, which is a problem, they pay for a lot of stuff in cash. And when you do that, that really is not a benefit for you to be able to show what you're doing. Me and my wife, we just came back from Cancun, and this trip, I didn't have to pay a dime because I used the points that were on my credit card. So we were able to fly. I was able to stay at the accommodations. I was able to come back because all these points I use on my credit card. Any transaction I try to do, I try to put it on my credit card and I pay it off. If I pay my car note, it's on my credit card. My insurance is on the credit card. Comcast is on the credit card. My cell phone is on the credit card. Whenever she does, it's on the credit card. Whenever we do stuff on the business, it's on the credit card. So you have to think about it. Some of the points may be 3%, some of them may be 2%. After you do this for a year or 2 years, you have a lot of points that you can do. And some other thing, you also have protection on the American Express card. You have warranties that are on that product when you use it. So for example, you buy something that's damaged, like an appliances, American Express can do it. Your cell phone itself, many people, they get you with the iPhone, you have to pay this some money for the insurance. If you have American Express, you don't have to do that. They have an automatic insurance on that particular phone. So what I tell people to do, call the people that you have your card with and ask them, what benefits do you have? What stuff do you have that's not listed in there? And they will go through it and they'll tell you and you'll write it off. And some may be better on gas. If that card is better on gas, when you get to the gas station, this is the card that you're going to use for gas. Some may have promotions on the food. When you get there, this is the one that you're going to use on the food, because those are what they're driven these cards for you to use.
So, but now in using this credit card, you're also going to have an exorbitant bill at the end of the month. So the idea of being able to pay your credit card off at the end of the month, that is not the situation. So what about high interest rates on credit cards? Because sometimes the payment that you make monthly is equal to the interest rate that you're paying on it.
Now, if it was a different community, I would explain it differently, but for our community, we don't want to use that of the interest. So it's important to notice I'm trying to get us to pay for it at the end of the month. You were normally going to pay for your cable bill anyway. You're going to get gas anyway. You're going to get food anyway. So that money that you had sitting there, put in that account. Once you know that you spent that $800 on that credit card, send that $800 in. So you're not accumulating that bill. What happens is the management of money comes to be a key factor. You see that $800 spent and you see that nice purse and these nice shoes that are there. Or you go and look at that nice truck or that trip you want to go, and then that money gets diverted from what it's supposed to be. So it never starts off that. It's always, you still have to have good management skills. And what credit does do is give you a false sense of money power, because you can be on a trip, and I've done this and I'm guilty of it. We'll be in there and I'll look at stuff and I know I shouldn't get. And I'll say, oh, I'll pay it back later. Or let's go ahead and get it, because you're enjoying yourself out. You're with the family. You may be at Disney. You may be getting your clothes, or you may be shopping. And this is the purse that was $150 over your budget, and you know you shouldn't get it, but the credit card will allow you to get it. Yeah. So in hindsight, that's where it becomes a negative part for you, because now when that money comes in, that extra $150, you say, oh, I'll just send them the money and pay it back. Before you know it, you had this exorbitant credit card bill that's sitting over you like an elephant. And now you're like, how did I ever get here? It's because multiple things that you have done that have put you in that situation. Now you're in a position where you got to get your credit done.
So someone is asking, how does President Biden's policy on paying off student debt affect your credit score?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How does President Biden's policy on paying off student loans affect your credit score?
From what it seemed like it would be any. I'm not 100% sure on that question, so I don't want to give any wrong information out. But what I'm looking at, if it's a debt that's paid, it should be the same as any debt that's paid. So it just knocks down the debt that you have. But you have to remember that one thing that you have positive on the credit score is the length of the time. So if it's paid off, that time stops. You're not making payments anymore. So sometime when you pay off a debt, your score dropped. It's like, but dang, how did it drop? And I paid it off. I have a pickup truck, and I had this truck forever, and I keep refinancing. I think my note might be $80 a month. And people who do credit know why this truck is $80 a month. Is because I want the line of credit to show that I'm continuously making payments on it. I could just pay it off, but if I pay it off, it doesn't boost my account. It doesn't show a positive trade line, and I just try to keep extending it to make it longer.
If you have good credit with a credit card, can you get the interest rate lowered?
Yes, you can.
How do you do that?
You can call in. Some of them will do it temporarily with you. I'm gonna give you one. I don't know who has Chase card in there. I always tell people every maybe 90 days, ask for credit increases too. The ones that are stingy of credit increases are Capital One. They're very stingy. I don't know what it is. I've had Capital One for years, and they do not want to give you an increase. The credit unions are one of the easier people to get funding to. So when people come to us and trying to get money and funding to go into their barbershop or their salon or try to start their businesses, the first place I send them is the credit unions, because they're a little more relaxed with the money when you're about to get the money from them.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of credit card names, so you obviously have some favorites. You mentioned American Express uh, because of the points that you get and the other benefits of American Express. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
I'm not a a spokesperson, but what's been working for me, I tell people what's worked for me.
Yep.
American Express, in my opinion, is the Rolls Royce of treatment. I like people the way they treat me. So, I go to certain restaurants. You got a first time to show me that you got a good service. I'm not coming back because there's so many restaurants. So if you treat me good and the food is there, we're going to be there on a consistent basis. So American Express rolls out a good treatment for their people. Any dispute you have, American Express shuts it down for the vendor. You don't have to go through that. If you have somebody shaky that you're making a payment to, pay them with American Express. And another thing too, if you're getting renovation work done on your house and you hear a lot of horror stories about contractors who are taking people money, pay them in a credit card. So that cuts out all that. So you don't have to go back and forth with them. You can just tell them one time, I need you to correct this stuff. If it's not done, you call American Express. Hey, I had a contractor come in here and he did all this for me and he didn't do it and he didn't satisfy his requirement. American Express is going to take that money and put it back into your account. So you want to use it because they're the gorilla in the room who are protecting from you. American Express, you also have roadside assistance. Your car break down with American Express, they're going to send somebody out and do you a tow. They're going to give you a jump. If you get locked outside your house with American Express, they're going to come in and open the door for you. I've had people who have been in other countries and lost their car. They physically came out and bought the card to them and cut the card on the spot for American Express. They have free concerts that they do yearly for their members. They have points, they have rewards. It's just so much that they do. The credit unions is another one I strongly recommend over a regular bank if you're getting a car. Only reason I ask that, with a credit union, you are a member. Always remember that. Remember when you join most credit unions, they ask you for that $5. People don't really realize that. What are they asking you that $5 for? It's because you paid to a membership of that. A lot of people, what they should do is go to these meetings. You're a member. You never thought about it. So when you're in there and you're networking and want to know why certain things I don't know and they know, because they're going to these meetings of the credit union. If you ask, they'll send it to you. It's on the websites. Being part of a nonprofit too, because as our community, it might be a good idea to go and talk to some of these chairmen, some of these other people, but we don't really sometimes look at those avenues. They'll post it on their website and they'll say, okay, we have a golf clinic with Maryland University. That may be them. So you could go out there, you could participate in. They may have a car wash or whatever. All of these places have their charity that they do. And I think it's a good idea that our community may want to try to benefit from that. And we have many members, so we can send hundreds of people to come and bank with them and do things with them, and we can show up, but that starts establishing a relationship. And sometimes that relationship is candid. One quick thing, on the car, notice I said a car. If you go through the credit unions, when they come to repossess a car, it takes them longer to do a repo than a regular bank. Usually after 60 days, banking institutions like Bank of America will come and repossess your car. But with a credit, they would do it differently with a credit union, I'm sorry, we're the credit union. It takes them longer. It may take them up to 4 months. And then sometimes you can call and maybe extend it. So that's where you want to get your car from, because, you never know when you may be going through hard times. And that's just something that you want to know by being able to get it to a different vendor, because you're a member instead of just out of a customer that they're trying to get money out of.
Can I say something?
Yes.
What about using PayPal and those other type of paying systems?
PayPal is more secure form of payment that I've seen. They kind of protect the people. What I try to do is make sure I'm steering people to things that are protecting you. Cash App, I mean, y'all know Cash App, once you send it, you go on.
Yeah.
Cash App is the wild, wild west. You want to get the money to them, but it's good for a small, 20, 30, whatever it is. I wouldn't be sending a large sum of money to someone off the Cash App. And then I always tell people to send $1, ask the person they receive it. I'm guilty of myself. I don't look at the picture and hit the wrong symbol and sent the $75. And I know it's not even needing me calling back or send anything. That money is gone. So I didn't follow my own practice by just glancing at the thing. I'm at the light and somebody, Dad, I need this. It's just life. And I'll send it and the money's gone and nothing I can do about it. So try to use things that are more secure and that will protect you, is what I'm saying. And credit card is first. PayPal is very good also.
Marsha, please recognize Muhammad.
Yeah, so Muhammad, you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute and ask your question.
Yes, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning. I was a little late getting here, but I heard you say something about a loan is good to get a loan if you don't need a loan. I put that in the chat. Can you speak about that, Mr. Porter?
Let me rephrase that. I really recommend a HELOC, home equity line of credit, would be the best product that I would tell anybody in our community to get. If you can get it, it's a HELOC. HELOC is a home equity line of credit. And the reason why I say that, if it's sitting dormant, you're not being charged for it. A loan, I wouldn't suggest getting a loan. I'm glad you did clarify that. You can get a credit card, but I wouldn't get a loan, because once you get that loan, you start paying right then and there for that loan. And I don't want you to start paying then and there for a loan, not unless you got some form of executing that payment back. It defeats the purpose, because once you sign that line, they put that money into your account, that meter starts ticking right then and there. The HELOC, the home equity line of credit, you can just sit that dormant. And the reason why I say get it now, apply for it now, so if emergency happens or something comes through, you have access to capital at the lowest interest rate that you can be able to do anything. And I also said, like, if somebody passes away or your transmission on your car messes up, you don't have to use your credit card. You can use your HELOC that is there. So you always know that in case anything happens, I have that HELOC of $60,000 or $70,000 that's sitting there for an emergency use. I might not need it now, but it's always there. So try your hardest. If you're in a position, get a HELOC or even a credit card. You can get the credit card. You don't have to use them. So always apply for credit and increase your credit limits. You don't have to use them. I tell people, put them in a safe. Just have them in there. It's just like cash. You have access to capital when you need it for certain things. It may be a good business idea that may come past. It may be an emergency that comes past. You know that I have access to $60,000 or $70,000 that I can't call. And I tell people, how many of us can pick the phone up and ask people for a couple $1,000s? Most of us can't. So the relationship with these lending institutions is golden, that you got access to this type of capital if you need it for certain things that come by, and life just comes at you where you're going to need those things.
What about airline cards? Like if you fly a certain airline often, getting an airline credit card.
I strongly recommend it. I'm guilty of that. I travel so much and I have not done it. Sometimes people say stuff and they're not practicing what they preach. I am not practicing what I'm preaching, but that is something that should be done. If you know you get on Delta, for example, all the time, apply for the Delta card. They're going to give you more points. They're going to be able to give you more things that you can use, and you're maximizing that card. Then you got to think about it. You're also paying at a discount. The thing is, you're good management. Now, I keep saying this and repeatedly, is discipline and good management when dealing with credit cards. If you don't have discipline and good management, I'm going to tell you straight up, stay away from it, because most of the people who have bad credit, it start off good. It look kind of sexy when you had this nice card and you're showing your friend, but when them statements come back through there, the second part is paying it and make sure that it's on time when you pay it.
Okay, we have just a few more minutes, but I do want to recognize everybody's hand that's up. So Marsha, let's try to keep it as precise as possible. Marsha, let's.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mary, you can go ahead and take yourself, Sister Mary, you can take yourself off of mute, ask your question. Oh, you went back on mute. Go ahead and take yourself off of mute again. There you go.
Okay.
Ask your question.
What about a Citibank? Having a card with Citibank?
Sure. What was the question about Citibank? Is it a good card, bad card, or what is the statement on?
Is it a good card?
Yeah, I think anyone that's giving you access to capital, in my opinion, is good card. The reason why I say that, you have access to money. You know, say for example, Citibank gave you $5,000 or $10,000. To me, that's a good card. You saw somebody that saw to give you $10,000. I don't have many friends that I can call and give me $10,000.
Okay, next question is from Sister Noria. You can go ahead and take yourself off of mute. I see you talking. You should see something on your screen asking you to come off of mute.
But I do think you need, and you can give Sister Noria, you're still on mute, but I do think we need to make a distinction between having access to cash. The home equity loan, as you point out, that's access to cash that you can have sitting in the bank, and you don't pay any interest on it unless you use it. However, with a Citibank credit card, you know, you're going to end up using that credit card.
Correct.
And so that's a big difference. And so again, I think the importance is having a discipline and money management, because you're going to pay a high interest on the credit card, whereas you pay a low interest on the home equity loan. So those monies are very different in terms of how it looks in payback.
Well, for our community, I'm always try to pay it back within 30 days.
Okay.
Other communities that I deal with, and sometimes different organizations, they're not paying it back in 30 days. They're trying to leverage that card to be able to make more money off investments and stuff like that. But for us, my thing is, if you have access to that money, use it, wisely, and try to pay it back in 30 days. You don't pay an interest charge if it's paid back on time. That's the caveat. So you still have access to this capital. It's saying after 30 something days that you pay it back, you're going to pay interest. Another card is the American Express Plum card. If you're in the American Express family, they have a card that's called the Plum card. I use it for business, and they also have it on personal. They give you up to 60 days to pay it. So say, for example, you want to do some things, you want to buy a lot of items, you got up to 60, and depends on when the pay cycle went, it can almost be up to 75 days, but you have to pay that card back in 75 days. That's a lot of wiggle room for you to be able to do some stuff off a credit card and still get points, and to be able to use it for 75 days. So certain cards they have, it's longer than 30 days, but you have to do the research on the card and know, like, okay, this is the card that I want to do. So I tell people, look on those cards and call the institution, ask them, do you have a card that's longer than 30 days? Is there a grace period? I think Discovery has a grace period if you're even late. So those are some of the cards, you're not the punctual type, you need to also check on that. And then one main thing I'm going to tell people, put your cards on auto. It's so many people I know that have good credit and they just miss one payment, and it could be emergency happening or something goes on, and they'll leave where they're going to. They could be right at the computer and they can get a telephone call and they're supposed to pay that bill and they forget. What happens is it's a late payment up there. So if you have, every card that you have should be on auto pay. I don't care how good you are, put it on auto pay, because you want to make sure that you're not slipping, and just one missed payment can change your payments. And I'll give you an example. A lot of cards, we talked about the 0 APR cards. A 0 APR card has a clause in there. If you miss one payment, they can escalate that card up to 24, sometimes up to 32%. So for example, think if you have a $30,000 debt up there that you was using it for your kids' college fund, or you used it to renovate your house or whatever it is. So now I'm not paying interest for 18 months, but you forgot to send in the one payment. That payment now becomes 30%, but you could have did that on auto. So if you have the opportunity, please put it on auto. I've seen that auto save so many people, and that's one thing I want to make sure I said.
Okay, we're after 11 o'clock, but I'm obligated. Sister Nora, please go ahead and ask your question. And then Doni, get ready to take yourself off of mute and ask your question. Sister Nora, you're still on mute, Sister
Yeah,
Nora.
I'm giving her the option to come off of mute, but it doesn't seem to work. And I just want to remind Ahmed to put your info in the chat. People are asking, so they want to receive that. But we're
Okay,
gonna
Doni.
move on to Sister Malvina.
Yeah,
Take
Doni,
yourself
go
off of mute.
Okay, I want to ask you. I bought a car, and I pay an extra $100 every month on my loan. They send me they send me my payment. They tell me I don't have to pay anything. Is that good or bad?
What they're saying is you satisfy the requirement debt on what you're doing, but you have to specify what this money is going to. You want it going to the principal on that car. If you specify the principal, then it'll start paying down that car note for you, is what you want to end up doing.
You're on mute, Doni. Doni, you're on mute.
I'm mute.
You're ready.
American Express. I have American Express. I've been in it for like over 30 years or more. And they did send me a platinum card, but I sent it back because it was too much money. I wasn't using it like that. I need a platinum card.
No, sister, the community needs it. Your sisters
No,
need it.
no,
You
no,
need it. So I'm
no.
glad we had this talk.
No, but Ahmed, you have to remember that you are a business person. And so
Yes.
you use your card to make more money. Most of us use our card for pleasure. So it's a big difference. And so we are running up a bill that we can't pay. You're running up a bill, but you're making money to pay it. Let's move on to Doni. Are you finished with your question? Okay, Mohammed, we need to just let someone else ask a question first and then come right back to you, Mohammed. Is there someone else?
No other
Go ahead,
questions.
Mohammed, and then we're going to close out. You see, people need to know this. So
Yes,
your phone
quick
is gonna be-
question.
Yeah,
Real
go
quick.
ahead, Mohammed. Go ahead.
Should I buy a car and pay it all off outright, or just buy a car and make the payments so I can build my credit up? My credit score right now is good. It's 800. But should I just buy the car and just pay it all off, or should I just buy it and make the payments?
Me personally, I wouldn't pay the car straight off. It's not showing any payment history. With your credit, you probably could get a car at 0% APR. So what I would do is just have that money that you're going to pay the car off and then just get it transferred to make those payments off. Because on your report, it shows a different installment loan that's being put in there, and it's going to show good for you when you go get another vehicle. If you pay for it straight off in cash, it does nothing for your credit report. It does nothing for you in general itself.
But again, you got to keep everything in perspective. I mean, I'm at an age where if I sell my house, I want to buy a house, I want to pay it off. I don't want to even concern myself with a mortgage anymore because I'm living off of a very fixed income. If you're at an age where you're a business person and your business is growing and you got a lot of tax write-offs, that's a whole different scenario. And then if you're a college student, the last thing you want to do is open up those credit cards that they're sending you every day and telling you, just use it. Don't worry about repayment. And then the next thing you know, you go into your mother or father or somebody.
Very true.
It's so we got to keep things in perspective to our age and where we are in life. And the kind of financial burden that we want to place on ourselves. Sister Hadia, you're going to be the last question.
Sister Hadia, you can take yourself off of mute.
I did. Assalamu alaikum. Quick question. You have those soft inquiries. How did it? I noticed sometimes it drops your credit score. Is there anything you can do about the soft inquiries?
Yes, the soft inquiries, we usually remove them for accounts that are not associated with the account that you have. The reason being, they supposed to have the wet ink, or they supposed to do it in person. They do it online, which is violation of a law. So when we go back in, we challenge them, and we get a lot of the inquiries removed. The inquiries stay on your report up to 24 months. Usually after 12 months, it doesn't show as much. The more inquiries, usually after 4 or 5 inquiries, you start getting denied from lending institution. I guess the street term, they say thirsty. It makes it look like you're thirsty for money, that you're asking everybody for money, and they don't want to see that. So what you want to try to keep it is under 3 inquiries per bureau. Another thing, each bureau pulls separately. So Experian may be for when you apply for it, TransUnion may be for this one. So when you get those inquiries on it, you want to have a low inquiry score in order when you're applying for certain things.
Ahmad, thank you so much. We really appreciate you and what you have dedicated yourself to, and made yourself available to us this morning. And of course, you're now going to get 1,000 calls because everybody, money is it's a difficult management. I mean, you know, we have all kinds of, we spend money on everything. We use credit cards for everything. We use debit, but I am going to get rid of my debit card. That is a fact. So I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much for joining Study Al-Islam. Don't forget that the newsletter came out on Saturday, and we have the recording of the tribute to mothers in there for those who did not hear it. And also the announcement of starting June 2nd, the first Sunday in June, we are going to dedicate every Sunday for Talim Sunday at 1 o'clock. We will still have the Study Al-Islam program because we have this kind of information that we received from our brother today, which is so valuable. So we're going to continue with our 10 o'clock program, but we're going to add a 1 o'clock program because we want to go back to studying the Hadith and the Quran. And so at 1 o'clock, Imam Wazir has dedicated himself to the study of Hadith. He will be our presenter every first Sunday on the study of Hadith and the connection to the 4 birds. And Imam Yahya Abdullah has dedicated himself to talks on the Quran. That's at 1 o'clock. It is in the newsletter. So with that said, I want to say thank you to everyone. And inshallah, we'll see you next Sunday. And let's close out.
Quick question. I didn't see Ahmad's information.
It's there, Imam Omar.
Okay.
And if you want, if Ahmed, just give your telephone number out one more time verbally. Take yourself off of mute, brother.
The number is 202-345-4634. This is just for our community. Please let that know. So I don't really give my number out to other organizations, but if it's coming from our community, my goal, and I want to make sure that there's something I'm passionate about, and I know the lives it's going to change, and I know it's going to help our community. So I want them to be able to get in touch with me directly, and I can move on it directly if they have an issue. So that number again is 202-345-4634. And I thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk to the community.
We are so grateful for this information. So many people are in debt. And this is a heavy burden on a lot of people. So thank you, Ahmed. I see your father's on here. So I don't know whether he's on here monitoring what you're saying or learning from you. But we certainly have learned a lot from you. And we are forever grateful for you dedicating yourself to learning this information and sharing it with your community. So when you call Ahmed, know that he's in business. Yes. And so I know he's gracious, but be prepared to at least at some point ask your question and then be ready to, employ him for his services. Let's move. Imam Omar.
Rabbi 19, if it dunya hasanatam with akhirati hasanatam with kingdom, give us the good of this world and the good of the hereafter, and save us from the fire of sin. Ameen.
Ameen. See you next week. Assalamu alaikum.